Now I've got a fun pattern for you today. It is one of my favorite fall nymphs. Now there's no real history on this thing. I've kind of just always called it what it is. A beadhead yellow soft hackle caddis pupa. Now I've thought about giving this a proper name, but I've tied it in enough variations over the years that I really can't think of anything different. And generally it's been the same fly, but I have experimented a little bit with the fur-dubbed body. I've used rabbit, and then I tried beaver, and then a rabbit and beaver mix. But last year I went to a camel, which is a pretty neat dubbing material. Now if you've never tied with camel, give it a look. It kind of reminds me of rabbit, but not exactly the same. It's just a little bit coarser, but you can dub it into a pretty tight noodle if you want to. And one variation that I haven't tried yet, but I'm about to with this one, is swapping out the partridge hackle with emu. And yes, I know I pronounced that wrong a couple of videos ago, so thanks to all of y'all who corrected me in the comments that this big ugly bird, native of Australia, is pronounced emu. And there's no real reason I'm going to try this emu over partridge. I think it'll fish similarly. Maybe that emu is just a little bit cheaper than partridge, and I did buy a lot of it recently. Plus, I just like to experiment. But you can certainly tie this fly without camel or emu. Just follow the same principles. I'd keep the body yellow and don't skip the peacock herl for the thorax, and you'll have a great nymph for some fall fishing. So there it is in the vise, what I've usually just called my yellow beadhead soft hackle caddis pupa. And I am tying it on a caddis pupa hook. This is a size 12. I've already pinched the barb, and that's a 2.8 millimeter bead. It's not tungsten. I didn't have tungsten in a 2.8, but if I did, I would be using it here. So go ahead and put some black thread down. Don't worry about locking that bead in just yet. We'll do that in a second. Now for the wire rib, I'm using copper in a size brassie. Now here's a tip I like to tell new tiers. Instead of just poking this up there, because sometimes, you could poke it too far and end up with the point of your wire all the way through the bead. So what I do, I just fold it over on itself like that right there. Now I can poke that up in there, and it's not gonna go all the way through the bead, and it will help secure it. And I don't know where I learned this trick. I don't know if I learned it anywhere. I might have just made it up, but I've been doing it since I figured out, a few years ago, that it works a little bit better. So go ahead and wrap that around to however long you want your body, and then put some wax on your thread. Then get some yellow fur dubbing, whatever fur you want. I'm going to actually use camel. This is a Wapsi camel dubbing blend. I'm not sure exactly what they blended it with. Possibly just rabbit, because it kind of looks like a rabbit. And I have made these with rabbit before. I even tried it with beaver, but beaver ended up being a little bit too spiky. I didn't like the look of that one. So I either stick with rabbit or this camel. Now if you don't have camel, take a look at it. It's some pretty neat material here. So I'm going to try to get a little bit of a taper, and I'm going to stop this dubbing about a bead's length behind the bead there. Okay, I might have stopped that a little shorter than I want, but I'm not going to put any extra on. I'll just make my thorax a little bit bigger. But go ahead and wrap this up, maybe 4 wraps to really strengthen this body. Now you might be able to put some tension on your thread and just helicopter this off. If you do, make sure you don't have a sharp point right there. If you do, a couple of loose wraps will take care of that. Now for the thorax, taking 2 strands of peacock herl here. And my goal with these is to make the thorax just a little bit thicker than that body. You don't always pull it off, and I think that's fine. I think the prominent feature, or the main reason you use this peacock herl, is to give it a dark thorax here. I think that's key. Now here's where I've been doing something a little bit different today. Last year and all the years before, I would make the hackle out of partridge, just a natural partridge. But I'm going to use emu today. See this feather here? The stem is pretty thick right here, and those barbs are pretty long. So I'm gonna pull it down here to where I get the really thin stuff, and it won't lay down as many barbs, and this stem is gonna be a lot easier to work with. So let's catch it in about right here. Now you will need to be careful with this because this stem is pretty thin, and I've already broken a few of them in these I've been tying today. So several wraps right there. We'll snip this excess piece up front. And I'm gonna lick my fingers, pull this back, and wrap 4 or 5 wraps just to get me some long, soft hackle-like legs up here. Now I'm just gonna pull everything back right here and try to sweep them back a little bit while I work on this head. And I think we got enough room for a quick whip finish here. Now if you want to use head cement, I just put a small drop right there on top of that bead and let it drip down over those thread wraps. But I haven't been doing that. I've been just putting these in my box just like this. So is this emu going to work better than the partridge I typically use? I have no idea. It might not be that different in the end. But there you have it. My beadhead yellow caddis pupa soft hackle nymph. Pretty easy tie, but it's done pretty well for me. So I appreciate you watching, everybody. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.